highlighting history of suburban Sydney with the St Peter's Cooks River History Group.
Our aim is to promote and preserve local history.
We are based at St Peter's in Sydney's inner west.
Watsons Bay is located on the south head of Sydney Harbour.
Evidence of indigenous occupation can be seen in rock art around the harbour's edge.
In 1788, Captain Arthur Phillip visited Port Jackson and landed on the beach at Camp Cove.
Since the early years of European settlement, South Head has been the gateway to the harbour and a navigational landmark.
In 1790, a lookout post with a flagstaff was established to communicate with shipping.
Construction of the first Macquarie Light Tower began in 1816 under the supervision of convict architect Francis Greenway.
In 1838, colonial architect Mortimer Lewis designed an octagonal two-storey sandstone tower. The height of the tower was raised to its present 4 stories in the 1890s.
An inspection of the Macquarie Light Tower in 1877 revealed decay and deficiencies. Colonial architect James Barnett recommended a replacement tower to accommodate a larger lantern.
In 1883, the new lighthouse became operational. The original light tower was decommissioned. 4 years later, it was demolished.
Surgeon John Harris cleared a 15-foot wide track to the South Head in 1803.
Old South Head Road was constructed in 10 weeks by 21 soldiers of the 73rd Regiment in 1811. An obelisk commemorating this road work stands near Robinson Park.
New South Head Road, surveyed by Major Thomas Mitchell in 1831, meets the old road near the Macquarie Light Tower.
The first documented use of the name Watsons Bay appeared in the Sydney Gazette when referring to Governor Macquarie's picnic. It was named after Robert Watson, pilot, harbour master and first superintendent of Macquarie Light Tower.
The Robert Watson Monument, an inscribed stone seat, stands on the waterfront near the ferry wharf.
Land at South Head has always been reserved for defence purposes. From 1854, guns were placed there to deter foreign attacks.
The School of Artillery was commissioned as HMAS Watson in 1945.
The military chapel of St George the Martyr was built in 1961 as a memorial to men and women of the Royal Australian Navy who had lost their lives in World Wars I and II and the Korean War.
Portions of the former Defence Reserve are now part of the Sydney Harbour National Park. Guns have been removed, but evidence of their emplacement can still be seen.
In 1833, land grants to Thomas Watson, master mariner and pilot, and Richard Siddons were formalised.
The Watson grants became the first of a house later named Clovelly. From 1864, Sir John Robertson, 5 times Premier of New South Wales, lived there until his death in 1881. The house was demolished in 1903.
The Siddons grant became the site of Zandvoort. The house became the Marine Hotel in 1854. The first licensee, Charles Smith, advertised a restaurant, well-stocked cellar and a band which played on Saturday afternoons.
Licensee Henry Billings renamed it the Greenwich Pier Hotel. He added a ballroom and private zoo.
It was called the Royal Hotel when Vaucluse Council acquired the building in 1924 for use as council chambers. Under Woollahra Council ownership, the property was renamed Dunbar House.
Land associated with these grants became Clovelly Park, today known as Robertson Park.
This first subdivision of land, Botafogo Estate, was offered for sale in March 1836. It extended from the waterfront to South Head Road. The name comes from a beachfront neighbourhood in Rio de Janeiro.
The first licensed hotel in the district, the South Head Hotel, opened in 1847. Later known as the South Head Family Hotel, the building still stands at the corner of Cambridge Avenue and Old South Head Road.
The Sydney and Melbourne Steam Packet Company commenced an excursion ferry service to Watsons Bay in 1854.
In 1876, Harmer's Ferries established a regular commuter service to Watsons Bay.
In August 1857, the ship Dunbar foundered 500 metres south of the Gap, with the loss of 122 lives. Only one of the crew survived.
2 months after the Dunbar disaster, the Catherine Adamson was wrecked when entering the harbour with a loss of 21 lives.
These disasters prompted an investigation into navigational aids for ships entering the port. A new lighthouse was built and named the Hornby Light, after Admiral Sir Phipps Hornby, father-in-law of the Governor, Sir William Denison.
Henry Newton and his wife Hannah opened a small tea room on Marine Parade in 1885. In 1908, the Ozone Cafe was built on the site of Newton's tea rooms.
In 1948, Alice Doyle, their granddaughter, reopened the Ozone Cafe serving fish, followed by scones and jam for dessert. The revived cafe was later renamed Doyle's, eventually becoming Doyle's on the Beach. In 1982, the premises were rebuilt.
For 3 generations, the Marinato family served the Watsons Bay public from various wharf-based premises. In 1968, their business was purchased by the Doyle family. It became Doyle's on the Wharf.
Caesar Anthony Colonna installed a camera obscura as a tourist attraction at Gap Park in 1900.
In the first half of the 20th century, fishermen would sell their catch from around a tree near the end of the Watsons Bay Wharf. The Tree of Knowledge pays tribute to the original tree.
The tramway was extended from Rose Bay to the signal station in 1903 and ultimately to Watsons Bay in 1909. Trams were replaced by buses in 1960.
Since 1975, nude bathing has remained a tradition at Lady Bay.
The Gap is an ocean cliff which faces the Tasman Sea, a popular tourist destination and unfortunately a location for suicides.
Gap Park contains early fortifications and disused gun placements.
One of the Dunbar's anchors was incorporated into a memorial erected in 1930.
A memorial to Lieutenant Gideon James Grieve stands on the southern edge of Gap Park. Grieve was a local resident killed in the Boer War. It was originally designed as a drinking fountain and featured a Highland figure.
The 1959 pilot station closed in 2008. From 1792, seamen based at South Head would board ships coming into the harbour and lead them to the settlement. The service was a private matter between pilots and a ship's master. In 1813, official rates were gazetted. After the wreck of the Dunbar, the government paid licensed pilots and wages for crews of 3 boats. The first official pilot station was built in 1860.
Buildings with historical connections are:
Our Lady, Star of the Sea Church was built in 1910. Land had been acquired in 1849 for the original Catholic Church. Construction of the church was undertaken over several decades by members of the Portuguese fishing community. It was sufficiently completed in 1870 to be used for regular Mass. The church was known as St James, St Francis and St Anthony's. This building is now located in Vaughan Village.
Construction of St Peter's Church, designed by Edmund Blackett, began in 1862. The church was completed and consecrated in 1864.
In 1929, memorial gates were installed and dedicated to the victims of the Grey Cliff ferry disaster. The Grey Cliff had collided with the RMS Tahiti in 1927. The loss of 39 lives included a large number of school children from the district.
Today's A-frame Uniting Church was opened in 1960. Its origins date back to a congregational independent church known as the South Head Independent Chapel, whose foundation stone was laid in 1839. A mission hall known as the Tin Tabernacle was built on the corner of Robertson Place and Dunbar Street in 1891. The present church hall in Russell Street served as a church from 1909 until the present church was built.
In 1877, a public school opened on Old South Head Road. When a new school opened in 1925, The old building became a scout and guide centre and was renamed the Gunya.
A former school residence stands on Old South Head Road.
Vaucluse Town Hall and Council offices on Military Road opened in 1910. The upper level hall was used as a picture theatre known as the Rivoli, Rex, Village and Watson's Bay Theatre. Screening ceased in 1959. When the council moved into Dunbar House in 1924, the building was used by the Masonic Lodge until a new Masonic temple in Gap Road was completed. Today the lodge has been converted into a private home.
A former marine biological station built in 1881 still stands in Pacific Street.
Boongari in Pacific Street was the home of novelist Christina Stead. In her novel, Seven Poor Men of Sydney, Fisherman's Bay is a description of Watson's Bay.
Today, the original village of Watson's Bay is a tourist destination noted for its breathtaking scenery and historical heritage.
If you have enjoyed this video, subscribe to our channel. It's free. Coming soon. Cars Park. And check out our website, stpeterscooksriverhistory.wordpress.com. Visit us the first Saturday of every month from 1:30 to 4:30, 187 Princes Highway, St Peters.